This cat doesn't belong to me. He's actually the property of my good friends Jason and Lauren. They asked me to make him a summer jumper because he was recovering from a short illness. I don't have any pets and I've never made any animal clothing, so this was a first for me. It's an extremely easy project to make. It's essentially just a simple rectangle of knitting with ribbing at each end, and that has two openings for the animal legs to go through. There is only one seam that will run down the centre of the chest of the cat or the dog. To make the jumper in bigger sizes, then just widen the stitch count and adjust the row length accordingly. Gauge isn't a particular factor in this case, so just do what feels right for your yarn. But for this particular project, I reached a stitch count of 28 over 40 rows at tension 6.
So over a 1 by 1 arrangement, I have cast on and done 3 circular rows over 114 needles. You could use any other needle arrangement if you want to, a 2 by 1, 3 by 1, 2 by 2, the choice is yours. And what I'm going to do now is just knit a rib of 30 rows. So I'm just going to do the first row, and like any other rib, the first row may be a little bit difficult, so we'll do this one slowly. And there we are. So now I'm going to knit a further 29 rows, and we'll do that off of camera. So that's the 29 rows done. What I'm going to do now is transfer from the ribber up to the knitter. So that's all the ribber stitches gone up to the knitter bed, and I've gone from tension 3 up to tension 6, and I'm now going to do 1 row of stockinette stitch. And what we're going to do now is create the holes for the animal's legs to go through. So at this point we take our spare yarn that we used from the main garment, and we're going to count 12 stitches in. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And this is our margin here, and we're going to bind off 15 stitches from inside of this margin, so the next 15 stitches along. So here's the 12th stitch there, making sure that we don't actually go over the latch. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. So from here to here are the ones we're going to bind off, so we can put these ones back. And what we're going to do is bind off around the gate pegs, and to do that is quite simple. Just put the yarn into the hook there and bring it back through the loop, so you've actually created a loop there. Hold on to the free end of the yarn, take your transfer tool, put it round the gate peg at the back, and then lay it into the hook. Bring both stitches forward, and then take the longer end of the yarn, put it into the hook, and pull it through. And with this new stitch, you then put it into the hook, pull it all the way forward, go into the hook of the adjacent stitch, and then put the yarn into the hook and pull it through. Again, put your transfer tool into the hook, put your stitch onto the tool, and go round the back of the gate peg onto the adjacent needle, and then lay the yarn in the hook and pull it through. Take that stitch, take it onto the tool, around the back of the gate peg, put it onto the adjacent needle, and then put the yarn in the hook and pull it through. I'll show you that one more time. So put the stitch onto the tool, take it around the back of the gate peg, put it onto the hook, and then pull it through. Put the yarn in the latch and then knit it off. And then you're going to do that all the way along until you get to the very end. So what we've done there is a gate peg bind off, and that gives a firmer edge than the latch tool. So what we need to do now is just lift this off of the gate pegs, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to knit the rest of the garment because it would get caught up there. And there we are. So now what we need to do is to knit the other side of this particular opening for the animal paw. So we're going to do that by using a double E-wrap cast on, and I'm going to bring those empty needles to holding position. So to do the double E-wrap, just take your yarn, go in between the first and the second needle above the latch, and then underneath the second needle, but you go into the hook of the first needle there, and then you bring the first needle back like that, and then underneath the second needle put it into the latch of the first, and you bring the first needle back, and then underneath the second needle, and then you bring the first needle back, and so on and so forth. So you're always going underneath the second needle like that, and you carry on going until you've cast on all of those empty needles. Don't make the stitches too tight because it will be difficult to make your first pass of the carriage. Now when you get to the end here, you're going to have this open. Don't be tempted to tie a knot to try and close it, because we're going to finish this off when we finish the actual jumper for the animal. So what I'm going to do now is go across to the other side of the jumper for the cat, and then I'm going to do the exactly same thing. So what we need to do before we do the first pass of the carriage is to make sure that we bring all these needles that we did the double E-wrap cast on, and a few either side, back to holding position, and that will help the stitches stay on the needles a bit, because these can be a little bit difficult to knit off. And then we're going to do that on both of the leg openings. So I'm going to go across to the other side of the needle bed, which you can't see at the moment because the camera's only at one end of the machine. So now what I'm going to do is just reset the row counter to 0, and I'm going to knit a further 80 rows, but the first pass of the carriage is going to be done really very, very slowly. And I'm going to make sure that they have knitted off. Yes, they have. And I'm going to just one more time bring these stitches forward again on both ends of the machine. Do another pass across. And then I'm going to put a claw weight on this section just to help them through. Again, that's on both ends, and that will help those stitches knit off. And then it's, as I said, up to row counter 80. So that's the body section for the jumper for the cat done. And what I've done now is rearranged the needles on the knitter for a 1x1 arrangement, because I'm going to transfer them back to the ribber, because the final section is to do the bottom hem of the jumper. So in order to do that, whatever arrangement you want to do, whether it's 1x1 or 2x1, is to move these needles out from the knitting position to holding position. And then first of all, just take your expired credit card and go across and open up all the latches. And then all you do is go across with your double-eyed transfer tool and then just transfer the stitches across. There is not, unfortunately, regardless of what make of machine you're using, a transfer tool that will go from the knitter bed to the ribber bed. There is, of course, many transfer carriages that go across from the ribber up to the knitter. So the ribber coupler is in place, the machine is threaded up according to the correct ribbing tension. And what I'm going to do is hang a triangular comb and attach a 400-gram weight. If you don't know what they are, the triangular comb looks like that, and this is very, very old now. I've had it for such a long time. And of course the 400-gram weight is the larger of the two. Now I'm going to put one at each end of the piece of work, because ribbing does need a lot of weight in order to keep the stitches stable. Now I should have done that before I transferred the stitches from the knitter to the ribber, because I would have dropped the ribber bed and just hang the comb onto the stocking stitches right at the edge there. I can't do that while this ribber is in place, because if I drop the ribber bed, of course all the stitches will fall down and come off the needles. But I forgot, as we sometimes do, so I'm just going to do that now and put the comb underneath the ribber bed and put it in place on the machine. So both combs are in place now, and I'm going to go across slowly for the first row, and then what I'm going to do is knit a rib of 30 rows. So that's the first row, and I'm going to do a further 29. Now on the penultimate row, just so that would be row 29 instead of row 30, I'm going to increase the tension to the highest it will go. So on the ribber, that will be tension 8, and on the knitter, that will be tension 10. And I'm going to make the row 30 just one pass across. And what I'm going to do now is transfer all the ribber stitches up to the knitter. So the last thing to do is to cast off, and I prefer to cast off with the latch tool, sometimes known as a loop through loop bind off. And the reason why I choose this method over the gate peg bind off if I'm doing a closed bind off at the end of a project is because the gate peg gives a rigid structure. That's fine for an opening in a garment, such as an eye opening if you're doing a ski mask, or in this case a cat or a dog jumper for the leg opening, but in my opinion not for the edge of a garment. Other people may disagree, and of course the choice is entirely down to you. So I'll get this finished and then I'll come back and show you what we do afterwards. So the next thing to do is to sort out these ends here of the leg opening for the cat or the dog. And all you do is to thread the loose end of yarn through a ballpoint needle, sometimes known as a darning needle, and then you just take one end and then put it through the last stitch there and go through to the other stitch on the bit where you cast off and pull it taut, and then go through to the back section and then bring it out through the front. And then what you'll find is it's actually brought the two edges together there quite easily, as you can see there. And then what we're going to do is just tie these two pieces together, these two ends of yarn, and then do that 2 or 3 times. 2 should be enough. I'm just going to make it really quite secure, and then we're going to just bring that through one more time like this, just to bury the knot, and then we will snip off and then cut that there, and then we'll do the same with the other side, of course. So the very last thing to do in the making up is to bring this edge and this edge together, right sides together, and join them in whatever manner you want to do. You can use the knitting machine, a sewing machine, overlocker, a linker, or you can do it by hand. And obviously if you've made a striped cat jumper, as I have done, then make sure that your stripes match up. And here is the finished cat jumper, or dog jumper, whatever animal you're making it for. I've done this one slightly bigger than what I was discussing in the pattern because Jason and Lauren wanted this one for the winter for the cat, and the one that you saw in the picture is for the summer. So what I did is I increased the rows for the neck to 45 as opposed to 30. The body length is a total of 90 rows, but the body rib, which would go towards the cat's hind legs and his tail, remains at 30. And on the other side, this is the opening for his front legs, and obviously this will stop at his back legs there. And this is obviously the seam that runs down the center of his body. I really hope that you find this useful. It's a very, very, very simple thing to make, and I wish you well with the pattern.